Hey, and welcome to the Ambitious Bookkeeper Podcast. I'm Serena Shoup, CPA, a mom of three, and I've been running a virtual bookkeeping business from my home since 2017. You are in the right place if you are a bookkeeper, accountant, or an accounting student, and you believe and know in your heart that your purpose is bigger than sitting in a cubicle. If you're ready to learn some actionable tips and strategies for starting and growing your accounting business, then I hope you stick around. Welcome back to the Ambitious Bookkeeper Podcast. Today I have a guest, Kara Perez, on with me. She's an author and she is just releasing or has released a book on money. So I thought I thought it would be really cool to have her come on the podcast and chat with this community. We're all like money people, but there's always a different perspective that all of us can learn and take with us and bring to our clients. So I'm super excited to have you on here. Welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. Always good to talk to a fellow money nerd.
Awesome. So I think we met on Threads, or maybe I found you on Threads. Now, I've booked so many podcast interviews recently with people who I've either sourced from a Threads post or whatever that I'm like, it's pretty safe to say that I found you on Threads. And the algorithm has been very nice to me over there. So yeah, give us a little background of who you are, what you do. You're an author, but give us the nitty gritty of who you are.
I always like to say the kind of like TLDR, internet brain rot, is okay. So I was born and raised in Massachusetts. I'm a New Englander through and through. And my parents got divorced when I was 2. And that's when money really entered into my life because my mom raised me and my siblings. And we didn't have any money. We were very, very low income. We were on food stamps for about 6 years and very much so grew up in a household of, no, put that back. We can't afford that. Why are you getting the brand name? Put that down. And then in high school, when I was in high school, my mom got her master's, which she paid for herself, became a teacher, and things really stabilized for us. But money remained hard for me through college. I was work study in college. I had scholarships, but I had to take out student loans. And then I graduated in 2011. And my fellow millennials will remember the job market was absolute trash at that time. It was like, unless you have a STEM degree and 100 years of experience, nobody wants to hire you for anything. And so I remained low income in my early adulthood. So really, money was a struggle for me up until I had my quarter life crisis at 25, right on the dot. And I just kind of realized if I don't get my financial life together, if I don't start to speak the language of money, clearly no one in my life is going to rescue me. Like my mom doesn't understand this. My dad doesn't understand this. Like I have to be the one to kind of white knight myself. So I always thought of it. And so I started a blog about paying off my student loans while being very low income. And I was working as a waitress making $15,000 a year, $16,000 a year, like really low income, living in Austin, Texas, had to pay my own rent, my own car insurance, all of that stuff. I didn't get any family help. And so I was just sort of like, here's what I'm doing. And I would just kind of word vomit onto the internet every week of, I picked up a catering shift this week. I made an extra $120. I'm going to apply $80 to my student loans. I'm going to put another $20 towards my credit card, blah, blah, blah. Like just really nitty gritty. And it was in that kind of period of intense money management that I realized I actually really like talking about money and I really enjoy being financially fluent. And this is something that not knowing made my life harder and knowing made my life so much easier. So much easier. Like I remember the first time I opened an HYSA, a high yield savings account, I was like, whoa, I feel like I just cracked the code. Like I'll be rich forever. But that's sort of like where I came from and how I got into the money world. And now today I am a financial educator. And so I help people kind of go on that same journey that I went on, paying off debt, creating budgets, but with a focus on sustainability. So sustainable living practices as well as sustainable money practices.
So one thing I know about the sustainable living practices is it's A, more time consuming, and B, generally more expensive. So talk to us about how you marry that whole thing with the money stuff, because I know a lot of people probably want to live more sustainably that way, but it's like, but it's way more expensive. Like, how am I gonna, or they might think it is. So walk us through there.
Yeah. So you're totally right on the first point. Sustainable living can be more time consuming. But I think it's actually, I don't want to say you're wrong. I want to say it's a misconception that sustainable living is way more expensive, because when you think about sustainable living, there's a phrase that you may have heard: reduce, reuse, recycle. And a lot of us get hung up on recycle. We're thinking, oh, like I'll have my plastic water bottle and I'll recycle it and like that will be good. But actually, sustainable living should be really more heavily slanted towards reduce and reuse. And reducing and reusing will always save you money,
Mhm.
right? Like I am drinking right now out of a former pasta sauce jar. So I bought this pasta sauce. I kept the jar. My aunt sanded it down, not sanded it, like she has a glass sander. She didn't use like actual sandpaper, and turned it into a drinking glass. And so that is one thing that I bought one time that I am now getting multiple uses out of, and I don't need to go buy more glasses, right? And that's a small example. But when you do that multiple times in your life, in multiple areas of your life, the savings start to add up, right? Like thrifting clothes instead of buying new, being a one car household instead of a three-car household, buying an older car instead of buying new. And these things really begin to add up. And that's what
Mhm.
sustainable living is. I think a lot of people think sustainable living is like everything has to be linen and bamboo and like spotless white homes. And it's like, no, that's Instagram, but that's not sustainable living. But I will say it is kind of a push and pull. And like you're a mom and I'm not. And I think that's actually a good vantage point to take on the time conversation, because I am sure there are days where you're like, we are getting pizza, right? Like, I can't cook. I don't have the time. I don't have the energy. Like, please. Whereas I don't have kids. I'm always going to have more time
Yeah.
than you. Just that's just a fact, right? So, when it comes to sustainable living, I try and tell people like, do what you can within your life's constrictions and your life's like what works for you, basically. So if you eat out a lot, then that creates like a lot of plastic waste or something. Like, okay, don't beat yourself up for that because you have less time. You can't do as much at home cooking. Is there another area of your life that you can practice sustainability in? Nobody. And I've been on this sustainable living thing for like 8 years now. I'm not perfect. Perfection is a myth, right? What is that phrase like? Perfect is the enemy of good, right? Like, I think about that all the time because you can always do a little bit better, but you'll never be perfect. And striving for perfection, trying to be the perfect mom, trying to be the perfect sister, trying to be the perfect sustainable living girly. No, 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 no. That's not what we're here for. We're just here for a little bit better. So if you find that there's one area of your life that you really are struggling to be sustainable in, switch that energy someplace else, right? Like, oh, instead of buying paper towels every week, I'm going to buy these reusable cloths and then I'll just throw them in the wash. And then I'm cutting down on the waste I produce from paper towels. Great. House is still getting clean, but we've saved a little bit of money and we've saved a little bit of, raw paper goods by switching to this cloth. I'm still driving around in a gas powered car. It's
Yeah.
okay.
Awesome. Yeah, I love the permission of just doing the little things that work within your constraints. So I got into the sustainable living thing when, well, I've been on it probably my whole life to some degree because my dad's like a big, he'll reuse like the cottage cheese Tupperware from, you know
Yes.
what I
A
mean?
classic.
And just like doesn't really get rid of stuff and reuses things, fixes things instead of buying new. So like I kind of grew up in that environment. But then my very first job in college was at a food co-op, which if the
Hmm.
listener or you're probably familiar, but if the listener is not familiar, it's like a health food grocery store, but everyone, like, we didn't have plastic bags. Like, we didn't provide plastic or paper bags for anyone shopping there. You brought your own or you reused the boxes that we got the goods in. So like little things
Mm-hmm.
like that. And then at just working there, we didn't even have notebook paper. Like we would just recycle other papers and staple them together. Like it was intense. People are probably
Mm-hmm.
like, that was your work environment. I'm like, yeah, my job one day was to just cut up a bunch of recycled paper. like that had been misprinted or whatever, and make it into little notepads for the employees. But so I've
Oh
been
my
on this a
gosh.
while. But when I had my second daughter, there's a pretty big age gap between my first and my second daughter, about 10 years. When I had my second one, at that point, I was a stay-at-home mom, so I had more time to explore this stuff. And I realized when she was a newborn, like maybe like a month or two in, I was like, the diaper situation. I cannot,
Mm.
in good conscience, continue to buy all these diapers and just throw them away. So I switched to cloth diapering. I was like, I got time. I'm
Mm.
home. That was probably like the most intense thing I've done as far as sustainability.
Yeah. I'm really impressed. I actually brought that up on another podcast where again, I'm not a mother, but I don't know if I could do cloth diapers. That seems like a lot. Like it's a huge win for sustainability, but
The one thing that I did that like ties into that, like doing as much as you can in your constraints or whatever, I gave myself the permission to actually use disposable diapers when we were out and about because of the convenience
yeah.
factor, because it does get kind of gross. Cloth diapering. I was
Yeah.
like,
I
if
think
I'm in
that's a
public, if
great
I'm gonna like be at the zoo all day, I'm not gonna be doing the cloth diapers. So like that is where I
yeah.
did give myself permission. But even just only using disposable during those times saved so much waste because I was home so
Mhm.
much. I'm like, if I'm at home anyways, like, and
Right.
I'm doing laundry multiple times a day anyway with little babies, because then I had two back to back. It
Yeah.
was just like, may as well. I'm here anyways.
Yeah, I love that. I think that's a great example of looking at the circumstances you're in and saying, what can I do here and now? As opposed to trying to like emulate somebody that you saw on social media and what works for
Yeah.
their life.
And yeah, and the amount, I never really did the calculations, but we probably saved thousands of dollars in diapers.
Yeah, I bet.
The
Diapers are
cloth diapers are
expensive.
also very expensive, and that was intimidating to begin with too, because I was like, okay, I'm going to invest a couple $100 into things that are just going to get pooped on. But
Oh my
like,
gosh.
but in the end goal, because I also like when I did buy diapers, I bought certain brands that were like no dye, better for the environment all
Mm,
around. So they were more expensive as well. And so that's where the more expensive thing ties in my brain. I'm like, okay, initially your investment is usually higher, or if you're opting for the products that are less of a carbon footprint or whatever, those tend to be more expensive. And so it's a hard thing for people to swallow, I think.
yeah, I do think that when it comes to buying sustainable things or things that are fairly made or ethically made, like, yes, they do tend to be more expensive, but like sustainable lifestyle practices, walking instead of driving, biking instead of driving, a lot of those are big money savers. So I guess it's sort of like sustainable
Mhm.
habits are money savers and more sustainable products tend to be more expensive. But ideally, something you can reuse again
Yeah.
and again and again, and you can get longer life out
Yeah.
of.
Talk to us about how you ended up writing a book about all of this. I'd love to hear the journey. Always
Yeah.
very curious.
It's so crazy, like getting. So I had two different publishers approach me to write a book, which is very flattering and very wonderful at a time that I wanted to write a book. I think if I had gotten the offer earlier in my career, I don't know if I could have done it. So the timing worked out really well. And yeah, basically they came to me and said, we think you should write a book. We like your voice. And I said, yeah, I also like my voice. Thank you for recognizing. And they said, what do you want to write about? And I said, I don't want to write another Money 101 book. That book has been written a lot. And I said, I really want to write about money and sustainability because I do think the sustainable living conversation is just growing and growing and growing. Like right now, as we are recording this, Hurricane Helene has just absolutely devastated parts of Florida and Georgia and Western North Carolina. And now Hurricane Milton is on the come up, right? And it's supposed to be the most powerful storm that will ever hit the United States or that has ever hit the United States. And we know for a fact, the science tells us that fossil fuels are making storms stronger and weather patterns more unreliable. And so that means that we are living through heavier rains, heavier snows, stronger droughts. And so I think more and more people are really awakening to, oh my gosh, our systems are really making our lives harder and more expensive, right? If we as a country are going to have to put more money into disaster recovery, that might mean taxes go up, right? Or that might mean parts of the country that people have lived in can no longer be lived in. If you have a house in Florida that gets wrecked by a hurricane every year, good bet you're probably going to move after you rebuild
Yeah.
twice, right? And so I really wanted to tie the parallel between these kind of big picture climate questions and fears and the individual. Not because like if one person gives up meat, it's going to solve the climate crisis. That's not the approach of the book. Rather, the book is more so a series of stories. I got to interview a lot of really wonderful people about how they are handling their money in this world, right? And how they're making sustainable choices from where they bank, how they invest, to how they build community, how they eat, how they live. And so, like, for example, back on the parent thing, I got to interview this person who was a part of a babysitting co op. So instead of paying for childcare, she and a bunch of her neighbors got together and would trade hours basically. They would be like, okay, so I'll watch like Susie and Jose's kids for 3 hours, and then Susie and Jose will owe me 3 hours. So there was no exchange of money, but everyone got to have their childcare needs met via people who lived close to them. So it was community building, it was money saving, and it was a very like resilient thing to do, I thought. And so the book is just a series of stories basically of people who are sharing how they're making it work now and how you as the reader can make these kinds of changes in your own life. And so the publisher liked that. And that's how I got to write the book.
That is awesome. And so they found you because of your blog. How did that work?
I think they found me because of Instagram. Yeah. And I will say I'm not the biggest. I think I have like 39,000 followers on Instagram. I think I had 37,000 when they reached out. So I want to say you don't have to have a million followers, but I will say social media is such an interesting and powerful tool for getting noticed and getting your message
Yeah,
out.
absolutely. That is so cool. Okay, so since our audience are bookkeepers and accountants, like we're not new to the whole money conversation, but I know because I also coach other accountants and bookkeepers that like we all have our own stuff around money. What is something that if someone is trying to work on their own money story and building more financial literacy around personal finance and this type of stuff, what would you suggest? Like, where would you suggest people start?
Yeah, I think of this in two kind of sections, I guess. There's sort of the mental and emotional side of money, which I think we all know is so real. And then there's the practical, actionable side of money. So, if you like, I had a bunch of student loan debt and it used to make me feel really bad. I felt embarrassed. I felt depressed. I felt annoyed. Like it really wreaked a lot of havoc on my emotional well being. And I had to take different actions to address that than I did to actually pay off the debt, right? Like, oh, make multiple payments in a month and utilize my student loan lender they decreased my interest by like 0.25% if you signed up for automatic payments, right? Like those kind of tactics were different from I have to do the work around the mental work around feeling better about money. So I would ask people if like, okay, I'm beginning my financial journey. I would say like, how does money make you feel right now? Look at your overall financial picture. How do you feel? You feel good? You feel confused? You feel anxious? Try and identify it in specific language. And then think about what you want your money to enable you to do because money is a tool. Money doesn't wake up in the morning thinking about you. You might wake up thinking about money, but it doesn't think about you ever. So, what do you want your money to do? And then the question becomes how do we close that gap between where you are and where you want to be? And sometimes it is just, oh, I need a new bank, I need new investments, I need a new budget. And sometimes it's, I need to get comfortable asking for a raise. I need to, as a small business owner, get comfortable raising my rates. Or I need to let this part of my business go because it takes too much from me emotionally and doesn't bring me back enough financially. So you have to kind of do the emotional side and then use that as a platform to spring into action.
Yeah, I really like that. That was really good. I'm like,
You
wow.
know?
Yeah, that's so true. And even people who are comfortable with money, that's work any of us can do and should do on a regular basis because things change too. Like I consider like where I'm at now versus 5 years ago in my relationship to money, and that exercise would still be valid and a good exercise to do in this season of my life. Things change, you get more comfortable, and then things slip and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and I would also say to this audience, because like, if you're an accountant, you definitely have a level of financial literacy that the average person doesn't have, but you might be killer at, taxes and not feel very comfortable with budgeting, right? Or how to invest or how to invest according to your values. So, I would also encourage people listening to this, like, if you feel confident in one area of your money, but you don't in another, that's okay. That's totally fine. And you can always continue to learn. I always tell my clients, like, think about something you're really good at, whether that be something practical, like I'm an amazing baker, or a little more like I'm a great aunt. If you are good at one thing, that's proof positive you can be good at something else, right? And if you learned how to code, that's proof positive you can learn how to budget.
Mhm.
Like I think a lot of people get in their head around money. And if you're already knowledgeable in one area, you might think, yeah, I know how to do all this other stuff. But like, let's take a second and be like, do I actually know how to do that? And do I feel confident in that? Do I need to take a class, take a workshop, whatever it is? Just know that you can always be expanding and that, your knowledge in one area, it can be that kind of launch pad into being good at another
Yeah,
area.
absolutely. Yeah, it's so interesting that like even financial professionals have a layer of, because I've seen it and I've been there as well, a layer of avoidance around finance stuff. It's just really interesting to think about.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Okay. And I don't want to be, I hope this isn't inappropriate, but there's a joke on Friends when Rachel is, I think when she's pregnant or she's just given birth and she meets a gynecologist and he's like, sometimes you're at work all day and you're just like, I can't do like, or I guess it's like, maybe she's not pregnant. She's like, she's a waitress. And he's like, you're at work all day. You're like, I can't serve another cup of coffee. He's like, sometimes I feel that way. Like, or, wink, wink. And I think if you're doing other people's taxes all day, you might not want to come home and do your own budgeting or
Yeah,
something. So I could see how there is that like built in avoidance due to the nature of the
yeah,
profession.
that's true. I can see that being a thing. I mean, most of us like we're the last, our books are the last ones to get done. I found that the more I learn and like educate myself about investing and the personal finance side of things, it makes me a better advisor for my clients because it all actually begins with the personal finance. Like I can't help my clients set their business goals if I don't know how much they actually need to be taking home. Like versus how much they want to be taking home and all of that. So it's like it has helped tremendously me taking that walk, right? And doing the work
Yeah.
so that I can ask my clients the questions that will pull out like the answers that we really need. But it's interesting. It's like the more I work with this kind of stuff, it's like the more you know, the more you realize you don't know. And so then you just keep going
Yeah.
deeper.
Totally. Yeah. And I like try to appreciate that aspect of life because isn't that true of so many things? You sort of like, oh, I've achieved this one level. I feel confident. And then you kind of look up and you're like, there's so many more
Yeah, there's
levels.
so much more to know about this. I thought I was learning a lot.
Yeah, I try to be like, wow, it's such a wacky experience to be a human. Like you're kind of constantly growing. crazy,
Yeah.
to just sort of like keep myself moving forward. And also taking time to rest. Like, I've just written this book. It's very exciting. And I know that next year I'm going to do less. 2024 was a big year for me. I wrote the book. I made a major move. I've done a ton of other work. And I'm just sort of like, yeah, that was my season of
Mhm.
hustle. 2025 will be a season of rest. And it doesn't mean that I'll stop learning or stop growing entirely, but it's not going to be a growth
Right.
spurt year. It's going to be a little growth year, and
Yeah.
that's okay.
So what do you, besides the book, how do you work with people? How can someone like find out what you've got going on and all that kind of stuff?
Yeah. So best place to like find out about me is my website, bravelygo.co, not .com. That one was too expensive. .co. But I work with people in a bunch of ways. I work with people one-on-one to put together money plans. So budgeting, debt payoff, saving, how much should you be investing? I don't manage people's money. I don't do people's taxes, but financial strategy, that's what I help people with. And I also host a lot of workshops throughout the year. And I have some products, like I have a digital budget workbook and spreadsheets for people to use if they're ready to kind of DIY. And so I have a YouTube channel as well where I like to talk more about sort of the socioeconomics of things and also sort of like pop culture and money. Like I just released a video on Gilmore Girls and money because, that's a show that I love and that is totally insane when it comes to money. So I like to sort of on a lighter side of things talk about money in our media. I think it's very fun. And so those are the ways that I'm kind of talking about money on the internet and helping
Cool.
people.
I love it. So we'll link all of that in the show notes. And the best place to connect with you is Instagram.
Yes, feel free to slide into my Instagram DMs. So that's at We Bravely Go. It's kind of a weird handle, but someone has the Bravely Go handle and they won't give it
And
up.
they probably don't even use it, right?
Yeah, they're not. That's okay. I'm not holding resentments. It's fine. But yes, We Bravely Go on Instagram and TikTok.
Awesome. Cool. Well, thank you so much for spending some time with us over Dean on the Ambitious Bookkeeper podcast. And make sure y'all connect with Kara online. Grab her book. It's called Green Money. We'll also link that in the show notes. If you're watching this on YouTube, you can see it behind her. Little subliminal.
Yeah. Take it all in. So, yes, thank you so much for having me.
Yeah,
This was
thank you
great.
so much. We'll talk to you soon. Thank you to everyone who helps make this podcast possible. Content and interviews are produced by me, Serena Shu. Our intro and outro music is written and performed by my brother, Ian Gilliam. Editing is also by Ian using his awesome sound engineering skills along with Descript software. Hosting and publishing is by Buzzsprout. And you can check out the show notes for links to all of these amazing resources and resources mentioned in the episode.
Be ambitious.